We had 1,000 people out in the main hall too, wanting to hear about what was going on. And so we've been very involved in trying to facilitate public awareness raising, education. People wouldn't be so paranoid about what was happening. And that's the main town square in Chuchi. Gives you another idea of the poverty that exists there. So for foreign countries to come in and build a $2 billion high-tech facility for weapons destruction in this community, you can imagine what people were thinking. You know, how much can I get out of this? Can we get a new, orphanage? Can we get a new community center? Can we get running water? I slept in these communities many nights, when it was on these lovely Russian families' couches and outhouse in the backyard, that sort of thing. No running water. You have to run down to the pump and pump your water and put it on the stove to heat it up for the bath in the morning, and it's really very basic camp out type of living. Transparency. The community, the chem weapons guys, were used to high secrecy, high levels of classification. I did that too. I was in the military too during Vietnam. And we really felt that by the mid-1990s it was time that in fact all of this became public, and we had public discussion on this. In the United States there was good security on the sites. We weren't worried about terrorist attack for the most part, except with a couple of exceptions like Aberdeen, Maryland. But we wanted transparency, not only on the stockpile, we wanted transparency on the plans, on the destruction plans, and we wanted complete environmental impact statements and public health studies done as well. Here you see two pictures. One is, the one on the left is obviously in Russian, and that says no guarantees of construction without guarantees of social impact and social community construction. There'll never be construction of the facility. And then on the right you see no VX in Texas, and that's protests down in Port Arthur, Texas, where the U.S. military shipped some of the toxic liquid waste, particularly from Newport, Indiana, the neutralized VX agent. In that case, in the middle of the night, this was a secret second stage shipment they were doing. And we all said, this is trouble, basically trouble, you shouldn't be doing this. We heard about it just a little bit before. And Port Arthur, Texas, which is one of the biggest industrial toxic waste incinerators in the country, run by Veolia Environmental, is very controversial, and it's a poor black community too, so it can raise the whole issue of environmental justice and the like. But that's where a lot of the toxic waste is still being shipped, actually. And in Russia, we've done outreach offices. We had little village outreach offices at every site. This was an amazing process because the first time the Russians ever allowed anything like this to happen. And on the right is our director of the local office in Chuchi, Galina Veprova, and on the left is our public relations person from Moscow. And the little green door you see in the back there is actually the office address, right next to the little grocery store they had there in the town hall. And we operated 13 of these until probably around 2009, when the Russian federal government told us basically to close down, because once operations began, they didn't feel they needed much public outreach anymore. Very different from what we've done in the United States, where the U.S. government has had their own outreach offices that they, a little late in the game, developed, but finally did and operated actually quite well. Community outreach, picture there on the left of orphanage in Chuchi that we had adopted, so we helped them all the time when we went there. And on the right is Galina Veprova, our Chuchi director, talking with typical citizens there in the local villages. So I'm not going to talk about this very long because of the time either, but let me just point out the Chemical Weapons Convention has very specific deadlines for every possessor state. You've got to meet a deadline for 1% destruction of your stockpile, 20%, 45%, and 100%. And you'll see the bottom line there was that no possessor state party has met all deadlines. So nobody has been perfect under the CWC. And the deadlines, the United States met the 1% in the year 2000, which was fine. But of course we had started destroying it 7 years before the CWC even entered into force, so we got a really good head start, and we met the 20% deadline without any problem really at all. But we failed to meet the the 45% deadline and had to ask for a 3-year extension, which was granted. And we received the 5-year extension for the 100% deadline from 2007 to 2012. But of course have missed that now, and very similar for the Russian. And Albania, as I say, missed their deadline by 2 months. India finished in April 2009, but that was a 2-year extension on its deadline.